Hello, everyone, and welcome
Okay.
to the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's Venus, Mars, and Sun Point update. There's a very special conjunction happening in early January 2026, and I'm Julija Simas, and I'm joined with the wonderful Arielle Guttman to talk about it all. Hello, Arielle.
Hi, Julia. Nice to be with you again.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. As many of you might know, Ariel and I have done many workshops, masterclasses together over the years in regard to the Venus Star Point that Ariel, in a sense, introduced many of you to. And I'm very happy to have her join us in her free time today because we love this subject. But Ariel, this Venus star point that's coming up is, of course, conjunct Mars as well. So, that doesn't happen all the time, of course. And so it's quite kind of a very interesting sort of deep dive to look into it further. So as Ariel and I speak about all of this today, we're going to show you some insights that I've found as I've researched the Venus-Mars conjunction, especially in Capricorn. And then Ariel has some slides that we're going to share later in regard to looking at the Venus star Capricorn as itself. So there's a lot to get through. So let's begin. Now, I've called this
When
session.
do we never ever have a lot to get through? It seems like every time
Look,
we
it
get
doesn't
together, we
stop, does
have
it?
so much to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so many charts.
It's it's going down that rabbit hole because once you start with one, then another one pops up and another, and it sometimes you just have to really cut it
Yeah.
off, you
Look, I,
know.
I was still like that today. As some of you may know, I wrote an article about Venus, Mars, and this sun point, which I just finished yesterday. And I still keep, like, in a sense, going back to it, in the sense of finding more things about it. And it's almost like, when do you stop? When, come on, it's enough. Like, I can't actually spend more time on it. So it's a very interesting topic, and we're really glad we're sharing it with you. And so we hope you enjoy. I've called this fusion or this section in particular because, as we know, Venus, Mars, and the Sun, well, Venus and Mars will be meeting behind the Sun in what we call their superior conjunctions. And there's so many kind of really interesting sort of bits and pieces to this because Venus is at, let's say, the height of her cycle, like in the middle of her cycle, and Mars is about to start a new one. So there's this kind of crossover in their phases as they're meeting with the Sun. And the other real, I mean, there's again, I'll be showing you some very interesting points more about this, but it is the closest conjunction of Venus and Mars to the Sun in this like 50-year period that I have found. And that is like within
Mm.
20 minutes of arc. Now, we find many conjunctions of Venus and Mars with the Sun. Um, like there's a few dates that I'll give you as we go, but none of them are as close. And this was what really kind of intrigued me about, the times we were in. So anyway, for those of you that don't know about our Time Lords magazine, it is now in the Time Lords magazine, and I urge you all to read the amazing articles that we've got in the magazine. And there's a lot of columns as well, so many interesting things, and wonderful writers from all around the world, including Gary Caton, Eileen Nauman, Maurice Fernandez, Andrew Smith, and there's a whole lot of columns. There's about 20 columns. So it's a free magazine. So anyway, part of what I'm doing today is very much what I did the research for in the magazine. And Ariel and I, you could look at Ariel's website or YouTube channel, Venus. What's your YouTube channel called, Ariel?
It's called the official Venus Star Point.
Okay. And then the CIA
Venus Star Point.
website.
It's Venus Star Point. Yeah,
Yeah,
Venus
Venus
Star
Star
Point.
Point. So look up the CIA's website and YouTube channel and Ariel's website for, let's say, updates about the Venus Star Point we've done over the years, right? Because we won't be going through everything today. We'll be highlighting some stuff, but if some of it you don't understand so much or what have you, go back to the channels and have a look. There's plenty and lots of information that we've gathered, I don't know, over the last 10 years, probably more, Ariel. Um,
Well, we started working together on Venus in 2017, I think, for the
Yeah,
Aries
for the
point.
Aries point,
So,
that's right. Yeah, and we did a full
so
circle. Oh,
it's like 8 years now that we've
yep, yep.
been more than eight, going on nine. So a full Venus, one full Venus star,
Yeah,
eight
yeah,
year.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wonderful. We've learned a lot from each other, and there's still more to share. And just as we get into what this Capricorn star point, we are in this transition now from the Aries point that happened in March into the Capricorn star point. And I did do a lot of, let's say, looking at many charts about the Venus retrograde star point that happened in Aries in the Sky Spy column video. So anyway, if you want to look back at that, and I'm sure Ariel, you did quite a few about that as well. Um,
Yeah. I consider, you know, uh, the star point shows up, the next star point always shows up usually about a month or so before the actual Kazemi point, which is January 6th, which is an interesting date. But also, when the sun, of course, goes into Capricorn, which will be the 21st of December, and then Venus will go into Capricorn around the 25th, right on Christmas. There will be a much more heightened feeling that week, building up the last week of December, the first week of January. You're going to really start feeling the energy
yeah,
strongly.
right, right, right. And yeah, and there's, many reasons to be feeling the energy. I tend to, when I look at charts, look at that star point actually a few months ahead. Like if it's in a reading, like a reading that I'm doing, it's like I know that's coming, so this is
Right,
actually a focus point to look at. So anyway,
right, definitely. Yeah,
yeah, so this Mars Venus Sun conjunction is so interesting because yes, within 3 days we have a Venus Sun conjunction, then Venus meets Mars, there's a Venus Mars exact conjunction, and then Mars meets the Sun. And so the Mars Sun conjunction. So Venus starts her new cycle, so to speak, 9.5 months. And then Venus and Mars start a new cycle. I think it's about a year and something now, I can't remember. And then Mars and the Sun start a new cycle because Mars in the outer conjunction, like this, begins his new cycle, whereas Venus is halfway through. And this is, again, the Venus Mars conjunction is within 20 minutes of arc of the sun. Now, we'll talk about the Cazimi in a little bit. So many would call this a Cazimi, where traditionally the Cazimi is within 17 minutes of arc. So, it's pretty close, but we'll talk about that in a second. So, now this is their closest conjunction in many years. There was one in 2006 at 1 degree of Scorpio, but it's the closest in Capricorn that is in this era of 100 years. So we're not actually going to have, we're going to have conjunctions of Venus and Mars in Capricorn, but not this close to the sun. And the past ones that have been, I'm only actually looking at the ones that are close to the sun, right? Because there are other conjunctions of Venus and Mars around the sun as morning stars, evening stars, but they're not with the sun, so to speak. So yes, as I said, Venus is midway through her 19-month synodic cycle, transitioning to the evening star phase. And in this phase, we call Venus a full Venus, even though we don't see her. But she is actually in her fullness, in a sense, away from us. And Mars, in its 26-month new, is about to begin a 26-month new synodic cycle. And starting, so crossing over Venus, she goes into the evening sky and he goes into the morning sky. It's actually quite beautiful, that this crossing point that they're doing. So we can see this as a, a really kind of, I see this must a beautiful alchemy that's kind of happening here. But because it's in Capricorn, it's really quite, it feels really quite purposeful. Like there's something happening that really means business. How have you been looking at this combination, Ariel?
Determined,
Yeah, determined.
strong.
Uh-huh.
Uh, the words you've used are good: responsible, determined, deliberate. Um, but it's their cardinal energies are also action oriented.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of Mars showing up in this Venus Star Point chart, and there's also a lot of Saturn showing up. So Mars and Saturn have just made their square as we're recording this. We're just coming out of a square of Mars and Saturn, which sometimes in astrology we describe as a push-pull energy. So we've got Mars and Saturn highlighted, uh, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Venus, that's not her favorite sign. Sun, no, not necessarily the sun's favorite sign. The sun is fire, it's exalted in Aries, it's rules Leo, so it's fire, it's energy and fire and all that. Whereas I think of Venus as in her exaltation in Pisces is very watery. Really, when you combine
Yeah,
all
so
her
it's a
of
bit
her
sort of harsh
personality.
for her,
Um,
isn't it? It's a bit harsh for her.
so
Yeah.
this is tough. This is like,
Yeah.
you know, trim down the budget, trim down the waistline, trim down the activity level, trim down. It's like, we're asked to really go on a diet kind of not just food wise, but
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah.
Like you can be successful in this cycle, but I think it needs more of a one-pointed focus and determination and kind of, get everything else out of the way and just
Yeah.
like narrow things down to
Yeah.
what's prioritized to what's really important.
Yeah, take away the superfluous distractions and
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, for sure. So, I kind of
Like
also,
the time we spend on social media, for instance.
oh, look, I'm spending less and less time there, I have to say. So
Yeah, I just heard about Australia's new law that's going into effect. That is quite something if you want
yeah.
to talk about that.
Actually, I've got a slide on that. Yes, coming up.
Okay.
Just wanted to say before I change this slide is when the planets are in the outer conjunction like this, I feel as though they're shaking off the earthly baggage. Because when they come
Hmm.
down to Earth, especially Venus for retrograde, or when Mars is opposite the Sun in its retrograde closest to Earth, it's a focus on earthly things, right? Whereas this is almost like, we've become too entrenched in something, right? And we need to sort of let go of a few things. That's how I've always kind of seen it. So, interesting
Buy
times.
a pair of buy a pair of really good boots for Christmas. You might need them to get through the mud.
Yeah, yeah, right, right, right. Well, all this Neptune at the end of Pisces as well. So this is what it looks like. I tried to get Jupiter in here, but he was too far out and the animation didn't kind of let me go further. But we can see, Venus, Mars, and Mercury will be coming up to that sort of, there's a new moon that sort of aligns with Mercury as Cazimi, I think. But we have to think about the incredible Earth pull that happens at this time when these two planets are close, our closest planets, right? Besides the moon, which is a luminary. So they're pulling that way from Earth. And Jupiter's on the other side, which is massive. So this pull is extreme, right? And the what do you call it? The space scientists are always, there's what do you call it? Signals and space stations or whatever on Mars, signaling stuff, and they get very much broken. So they always say this solar conjunction, Mars solar conjunction, is always when they turn everything off and they don't expect to get any signals. So I think that's really interesting in that sense because we tend to, and Mercury there as well, and Venus, the signals are different, right? And
That's quite a lineup, and it's visually striking when you show it that way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And seeing it in our charts, we see them all come together, but to see it as the solar system shows, it is happening, we get that sort of idea of how much pull and interference there is because the sun is massive. So, what's that interference all about in our own sort of, what's coming through? You can see it as the solar power, the planets are behind and the solar energy is coming through. And all of these planets, of course, in that phase, in relation to the Earth, are all moving very fast. Now, I have a fast moving Mercury in this kind of position with the sun. And I find these times when Mercury is moving really fast, much more confronting than a Mercury retrograde. Like, as in, oh my gosh, things, you got to be so on top of things, you miss a beat and it's gone, that kind of stuff. So, I've always said that these outer conjunction points are as significant as a retrograde, but it's often not seen that way by many. So, anyway, um, so here we have the Sun,
I
Venus,
was I
Mars.
was just going to add I
Yeah,
was just going to add one more thing to that. I was looking that up. The moon is, I was wondering where the moon is on that. Then I know for the star point, it's going to
here,
be at 29 Leo. But a couple of days earlier, if we go back to January 3rd, we've got a full moon at 13 Cancer, which is exactly on the United States sun. But
right.
we also have, um, we also have that day right after the full moon, we have the moon lining up with that Venus, Mercury, Mars, Sun
Yeah, they're all
kind of.
close enough
So there's going
already.
to be
Yeah.
a huge pull. I don't
Yeah.
know what that's going to do to the tides and
Yeah.
the
It's also,
geomagnetic activity around the world, you
yeah,
know.
exactly. And it's also the what is it? Early January is the time the Earth is closest to the sun as well in its cycle. So
Right, right.
there's that as well. So yeah, there was the moon there. So if the full moon, again, this alignment and Jupiter as we go further out is also there. So interesting stuff. So here's the dates. So 6th of January, these are all UTC dates. So the sun point at 1622 Capricorn, the midpoint for 16 Capricorn or 16 Cardinal is actually Neptune and Pluto. It is actually the midpoint of Neptune and Pluto, the exact Venus star point, followed by the Venus Mars conjunction, exact conjunction on the 8th of January. Like, what's that? Not 48 hours, 44 hours or 46 hours later, and followed by not much later, or sorry, a day later, the Sun Mars conjunction at 1912 Capricorn, with the midpoint being the nodes and Uranus. So, there's a lot sort of being brought in here as well. Like when we think about, I've started using midpoints a lot because they really do kind of spark off things, more than we can see. So anyway, keep that in mind as we keep talking. So this is the chart for, actually, having said that, I've got nine, that should be 18 Capricorn, everyone. Sorry about that, because here it is, 18 Capricorn. The Mars Venus conjunction, here we can see it as our astrology charts show. So the aspects of this particular conjunction: trine a Virgo moon, a quintile, which is a very Venusian aspect. Venus and Mercury, it's often called, isn't it? A quintile. Venus and Mercury aspect, type of aspect, to Neptune, which is, hovering at the 0 point, opposite Jupiter. There's Jupiter retrograde, big and bright in the sky. So if you're out at, around this time, or even now, it's very bright in the midnight skies, as we say. And of course, Mars is exalted. Anything you want to kind of add to this, Ariel?
Yes. Just like I was saying a few days before this, when the moon is in Cancer, I forgot about Jupiter. How could I forget about Jupiter? Forgive me, Jupiter. The moon will be with Jupiter on the other
Right.
side of the Earth. And so
Yeah.
that visual representation you showed with great big, huge, enormous Jupiter with an enormous gravitational pull,
Yep.
and the moon, which we know pulls on the Earth in terms of magnetic energy and the tides and all of that. And also the behavior. People go a little berserk
Yeah.
under full
Yeah.
moons occasionally.
Yeah. So we're all getting
Um,
pulled
and
so
so
extremes. Yes.
we really have a balancing act going on there, don't we?
Yeah, with some really, kind of big, well, when Jupiter's involved, it's big and then a full moon. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we got to be onto it. Now, I just wanted to kind of bring up the idea or the way that many astrologers look at anything within the sun's beams as either in the underworld. I mean, the underworld kind of story, anything that's kind of not seen in the sky or is, consumed by the sun was understood to be in the underworld. And then sort of later down, it was given, words like combust, debilitated, burnt up, blinded. Um, and, I mean, these days we're kind of very conscious and knowing. I mean, these words came, or many of them, before we understood the solar system, right? Again, a planet disappeared. Why? We now know what they're doing, how long Venus will be behind the sun, how long Mars will be behind the sun, and so on. And I just want to sort of, again, many relate these to an underworld experience, but it can be very empowering as well. And a lot of the let's say the uses for a planet being consumed by the sun or under the beams have come from using horary astrology, right? Like the answers, like if a planet is the ruler of the ascendant or whatever you're asking about and it's consumed by the sun, then it's a difficult kind of situation, right? But
We'll
I think
never find those lost keys.
you'll never find those lost keys. Yeah, right. You're right, right, right. They've been consumed. So it's really interesting to think about all of these things. But, so people kind of, let's just say, these words can be a bit scary, right? Underworld. I'm going through this, experience. It's going to an underworld experience is going through an experience of transition or some kind of transformation or something that will be burnt up to kind of freshly rise again. Um, and I'm not sure if I see them as times of great weakness or debilitation. I think it really depends on what else is going on for, like, again, for personal stuff, for a person. Um, and I have seen these kind of times or moments of times when people go through the most kind of, let's say, challenging missions of their life, where they come out more powered up than ever. Like they have to go through an experience, but they get through it and go, oh, they've got to confront something that's very much about their own journey. How have you experienced that with clients and people, Ariel?
Um, I have people in my family and close friends that have planets combust the sun, and I really see those qualities of that planet coming out more in
More.
them
Yeah.
than less, than
Right.
swallowed up by the sun.
Yep.
But I heard a Vedic astrologer say a while back when I was first researching the Venus Cazimi points that combust for, a lot of these terms also come from Vedic astrology,
Yes,
Jyotish,
right. Uh-huh.
because Hellenistic astrology and Jyotish had a time, they shared, and there was
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
right.
crossbreeding with certain, I think modern Western astrology is not at all equivalent to Jyotish, but Hellenistic astrology is much more aligned with a lot of the principles. So there was a lot of similar
Crossover.
ideas there.
Yeah.
But I heard a Vedic astrologer say that combust was, yeah, it was being burned up by the sun, not good. But Kazemi was wonderful because it's like you're in the court with the king. The sun is the king.
Yeah.
And if you're just there in the court, nobody's paying attention to you, you're combust. But if the king singles you out and calls you up and has you sit
You're
next
right
to him
there.
or
Yeah.
whatever, now the spotlight is on you and everybody's eyes are on you. So that's Kazemi. So I thought that was a good way to represent the two, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Okay, good. Because that's my next slide. Um, and again, the Cazimi, again, is often said it's only 17 minutes of arc. But of course, the sun, Venus and the sun will make their Cazimi at that time. Um, Mars and the sun will make their Cazimi at the times that I was given ahead. You've always called the Venus Sun Point Cazimi like the heartbeat that, keeps returning, which I've
Heartbeat of
always
the
loved.
cosmos. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the
Hmm.
heartbeat of the cosmos. And I did write in the lap of the king. Yes. So in order to be in the sun or the heart of the sun, I was just
And
going
you've
to
got the
ask,
lamp of the king. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I always understood that Cazimi was when the planet was in front of the sun, like a transit, right? I can't find any information about the superior conjunction in the heart of the sun. I think it's just
But
assumed that it's called the Cazimi, but I'm just questioning this. I'm not saying I know. I've tried to find out if there is a differentiation between an inner conjunction Cazimi and an outer one. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know that there's much literature written about that.
Yeah.
I do know that a lot of what I have come up with is that, the traditional astrology doesn't treat the superior conjunction with very
Yes,
much
right.
respect or dignity. It's way out there. It's behind the sun. You can't see it. It's like irrelevant.
Yeah.
But I think it's like the full moon point. I
Mm,
always see the superior conjunction, just like the Earth and the moon. The sun and the moon and the Earth. You've got one on one side and one on the other, and
yeah.
there's a pull. There's a
Yeah.
great magnetic pull there. But I also think that you know, I think that I also
Hmm.
increase my orb to 1 degree. I go 1 full degree for Kazemi because my goodness,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how close do we need it to be?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's an interesting thing because Venus, let's say when she's in the inner conjunction, the sun will move past very quickly. So the 17 minutes of arc makes sense to me there. But when she's on the
yeah,
outer conjunction, surely the 17 minutes of arc should be longer because she's actually keeping time with the sun a lot more,
yeah,
right? So yes, as you say,
yeah.
the Cazimi
And
should
then
be allowed to
when
be,
it's on that side, they travel together
yeah,
a lot longer,
yeah,
really close,
that's
within one
right.
degree, close to each other. And I've
So the
I've described
Cazimi
that
goes for
as
longer.
the evening star. The evening star Cazimi I've described is the long, slow embrace.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
love affair that like stretches out because they're traveling together for a very long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Whereas the Morning Star Kazemi is sort of like,
It's
um,
very quick.
we meet at a party, we're really attracted, we get together for that one night, and then boom, we never see each other again
Yeah, yeah,
because we're
yeah,
going in opposite directions. I'm going to Hong Kong and you're going to London. So,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
tonight's the night.
yeah. Well, again, interestingly, also, well, the outer planets like Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all the others will meet, what do you call it, the sun in the outer conjunction anyway. So, and yeah, we do
Yeah.
call that Cazimi as well. So, okay, I've answered my own question anyway. But let's just think about it in the sense of being infused or forged in the sun's light, right? Like they're in the furnace. They are in there together. Even though we can't see it, like it's like you can't look into the sun, you can't even get close to it. And just an idea, iron, Mars, rules iron, or is the metal for Mars. It needs heat to become more malleable, right? To forge something. So it needs that heat. And Venus, ruling copper, um, is also a conductor of heat. So this kind of heat energy, it's a very hot conjunction. Like it's super, super hot. And I think therefore it is like putting something into an alchemical cauldron. What I was trying to, like thinking of was, the art card in tarot where there's, two things being poured to create something.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to do behind in this AI picture
Is
in
that
my
is that
background.
temperance in the traditional deck? Is that called temperance?
Good. Yeah, I think so. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah,
I just always
I
know it as
think
the
it's
art card in the Crowley deck, but anyway,
in the Crowley deck. Yeah,
it
yeah,
probably is. Yes, yes. So let's think about this as a fusion as opposed to a fission, where things can, a blending of energies, integrating, the Mars energy and the Venus energy, rather than fission, which explodes everything. But all of these things are possible. Do you know what I mean? Like, in astrology, when things come together like this, yes, there is the idea that fission can happen, but also fusion. So be very aware of that. I think being conscious of that. And the best way to understand how this may be sort of playing out in your life story at this time is looking back at the last times Venus and Mars were in this cauldron with the sun, right? And I've got the dates coming up for that as well. Um, and just to think about again the disappearance of Mars and Venus at that time, Mars has been out of the evening skies, sorry about the spelling here, since November the 13th and only returns by March the 16th. Now, that is a really long time, right, behind the sun, because he's also moving his fastest. And Venus disappeared around November the 26th and will return around February the 17th, just before that Neptune Saturn conjunction, spending, 77 days behind the sun. So the orbs that we use again for a planet to, let's say, be under the sun's beams or traveling, with the sun in that sense, 15 degrees for Mars because he's a lot smaller and further away, and Venus about 10 degrees. And I have seen her 8 degrees from the sun, kind of rising in the evening sky. So anyway, it's
that
just a
depends on
guide.
locality and viewing
Yeah,
decision. It depends on locality, viewing conditions, whether
all
it's
of that.
cloudy, whether
Yeah,
you have mountains in
yeah,
the way. You never can set your clock by when you're going to see Venus in the
yeah.
evening sky. But
The
it's
cap.
highly, I always highly anticipate that moment
Right, right,
when
right.
it's first visible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the Capricorn, it's the Capricorn, when planets are in Capricorn, they're in the southern sign, so it's much higher here. Okay, so probably more visible down or earlier visible down in the southern hemisphere. If it, let's say, was in Gemini, much more visible to come out in the northern hemisphere, let's say. So this is I just put together these graphs just to show, this kind of long process, but also in the fact that this is Venus and the Sun, they travel together within 5 degrees of each other for about 42 days. So this
Mhm.
is, like this is a really long process, and again mimicking, especially with Venus, her retrograde phase, right?
Mhm.
Which when we look at the Venus star points, we know that the Capricorn star point in this outer conjunction happened 8 years ago, but it also happened 4 years ago at the retrograde. So they're so well connected. I mean, we know they're connected, but then, finding that this sort of 5 degree orb, that they're very close together, not cazimi anymore, but still traveling so closely together for quite a long time, like 17th of December to the 27th of January. That's quite a time. And then
Mhm.
I knew this a while ago when, studying Venus cycle, closely, but I didn't realize Mars did that as well until I looked at this conjunction, right? This
Mhm.
conjunction coming up. So Mars does this as well for about 40 days and 40 nights behind the sun too. Or,
Very
again, when it's still
interesting.
not
Yeah.
visible, but it's very close and moving with the sun. So again, the idea that something is really sort of, we're either on a trial, on a mission, on some kind of, like, if we think about Mars and Venus doing it together, it's an extended conjunction in a sense, right? Like it's an extended sort of time period where we're forging something, not just the 6th and 9th of January. Do you know what I mean? Like we're actually coming into it and going through it. So that's how I like to look at it. And then the other thing, the midpoint, the sun remains the midpoint from November, the end of November. It already is the midpoint within 1 degree of Venus and Mars and continues till the equinox next year. Now, that's something I didn't know. So that's really interesting as well as in, they're equidistant from the sun for such a long time as well, on either side, morning star, evening star, Venus and Mars, evening star, Venus, morning star, Mars. So that's just really interesting. I mean, look at this ingress, Ariel, though. I never,
And then Mars Venus midpoint at 0 Aries, along with
yes,
everything else.
yeah, 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 yeah,
We really are going into a new world in 2026. We
yeah.
are entering new territory, that
Just after it,
places we've never been before,
yeah.
you know.
There's so many signals, isn't there? So then this Venus Mars, these are the conjunctions. The yellow is the conjunctions that happen closest to the sun, and again, the ones that I'm most interested in. It's often said that the conjunctions will repeat in the same sort of phase, like morning stars or evening stars or what have you, every 5 conjunctions. But as we'll see, they can happen every 3. Then there's a series of 5 conjunctions or fifth conjunction, and there can be 7 conjunctions. And that always depends on the Venus cycle, Mars and Venus, Venus going retrograde, Mars meeting it, Venus going back and forward. So you have a few conjunctions in a row, let's say, which we had in Aquarius, didn't we? Last year or something, I think it was. So, yes, so if, like, as I was saying, looking back at the periods of this, let's say, trail of these 3 together, the last times we had one was when it was in Virgo in 2019. And what we know is that, okay, this is the conjunction. Mercury was there or close by as well, and some other planet. Maybe it was Ceres. Maybe it was Ceres. Yes, it was. Did I write that in here? Anyway, um, and COVID started, or like
Hmm.
a few months later, so to
Aries
speak.
was in Capricorn amidst all that cluster. I want to say cluster, you know what, but in that year
Yeah, and then the next thing.
Capricorn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Venus and Mars weren't there though, were they, in that cluster?
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, and then the one before that, if you can go back and think about 2013, again, everyone's going to have their own sort of timing for depending, what planets were in that trail, what houses, the trail went through. And then we can go back to the Scorpio one in 2006 and 2000. And then this is the wonderful from the wonderful website AstroSeek, that you can make so many tables and clearly see them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so there was only 3 conjunctions, or the third conjunction after the 2001. Then there was 7. Then there was five, and now we're back to the fifth conjunction being happening with the sun again. So we do have other conjunctions in Capricorn, like there was one in 2022, but they weren't anywhere near the sun. Like they were, 20 degrees away or what have you. So just to keep in mind, again, we're focusing on this kind of fusion of the three at this point. So the Mars and Venus cycle is, it's so interesting, but it has got so many nuances, let's say. It doesn't do the exact same thing. You can find a pattern, but you really have to know what you're looking for. So the other thing that we look at for with Venus and Mars at any time, like we can in our own astrology charts, like wherever Venus and Mars are in your chart, what relationship they are like together as a trine, or from Taurus to Virgo or what have you, and depending on where the sun is, will determine that every 32 years that exact combination will repeat. Okay, we know that Venus returns every 8 years to the same phase and relationship with the Sun. Mars is a bit trickier, it's 15 or 17 years, and sometimes it skips a beat. Um, but then the two together is 32 years. So to look at, this Capricorn star point, and the last time it was infused with the Sun so closely in Capricorn, we go back to 1994, so 32 years ago, the time before 1962, and then 1930. The time before that, it was happening in Sagittarius. Um, and we will have another few over the coming 50 years, but they all get further away from the sun and then they move into Aquarius. So, anyway, it's just an interesting sort of thing to think about. Um, and so, if we look back to 1930, it's really interesting to think about the Wall Street crash happening in 1929 in September. Was it September or October?
I think it was
And
October.
then, yeah, oh, sorry, October. Yeah, October. So only a few months later, and again, this is how we can see these star points working. This conjunction happened directly over New York or Wall Street. So, there's kind of a lot of, a strong message in that for sure. Um, so yeah, so synodic cycles as, function or are seen somewhat like, eclipses, or there's two planets coming together before their exactness, as we've said many times. Pluto was discovered in February 1930, just a few weeks after the conjunction. During this time, atomic breakthroughs began, leading ultimately to nuclear weapons. There was the rise of fascism and political extremism around the world, especially in Europe, leading to World War II. And this is the conjunction that happened. It was actually exactly conjunct Saturn, so kind of Cazimi'd with Saturn, and right over New York, or, pretty much over New York. So that's interesting, isn't it?
Mhm.
Then the 1962 conjunction was,
Are we saying that we think that can happen again
well, it's just
because we
something to be
have a
aware of.
similar lineup?
I mean, it's all a bit dodgy out there, isn't it? Like we everything's on edge. Everything feels as though anything could happen. We don't know. I mean, that's also the Neptune zero Aries and the Saturn coming in, and we're understanding that things are not the same, and how are they going to be, kind of managed as we move through. Um, I don't
I
think,
mean, the modern equivalent of that might be the crypto market. There's also, of course, the Wall Street market and the other markets around the world, but they have been quietly, highly unpredictable lately,
yeah,
and they feel very volatile at
yeah,
this
yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah,
Like
that's
going
right.
into 2026, there's no guarantees on anything.
Property prices, all that kind of thing, everything, everything. I mean, like one of the things that we're seeing now as well is how expensive it is to live, right? The prices just keep going up. House prices keep going up. Like, how how much can that continue, in the sense for
Right.
people to be able to live? So we're at this point and edge. I can't say, overall, if I'm not predicting that I'm predicting that we're in a sort of similar state as in a sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, these cycles repeat, and maybe they don't replicate the exact um, things that happened earlier, the exact events, but they certainly
yeah,
are similar in some ways.
yeah,
There's aspects of them that are going to be repeating.
yep. And as I wrote in my article, the world is on edge about nuclear kind of, tensions as well. Like, they're making more of how many missiles everyone's got and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that sort of not culminating, I don't know, it's been happening for a while, but it comes up in this kind of research of, the Cuban Missile Crisis was escalating after this star point, or this conjunction Venus and Mars. The Soviet Union was conducting tests. It was the first time, even though later in the year Mandela was jailed, and in 1994 he actually became the president under this Venus Mars conjunction, and the escalation in Vietnam. So, anyway, there's a lot more that you can look at there, especially if you're born in those years or something like that. And then in 1994, it was a midpoint to Pluto and Saturn, so also quite harsh. Clinton and Yeltsin signed the Kremlin Accords to stop nuclear targeting. The Rwandan genocide begins. Nelson Mandela is inaugurated as the president of South Africa. And again, looking at the maps, this time the geodetic map, Pablo Escobar, the great drug lord, was killed in December of just before this star point, and the 13 degrees of Capricorn goes straight through Medellin, where he was shot down. So again, things happening like these star points coming into action, or sun points coming into action, or this Venus Mars conjunction before, and he before the actual event, sorry. And the 13 Capricorn was square his nodal axis at 13 Aries. Anyway, some interesting stuff. Now, this is again the chart for Venus and Mars conjunction now. And it's interesting to note that Black Moon Lilith, where's she gone, is at 4 degrees of mutable. And I just want to bring out, oops, that 4 degrees of mutable, what we call on the midpoint dial, is actually opposite 18 degrees of Capricorn, right? So anywhere, anytime that you look at the midpoint dial, 18 degrees of cardinal is opposite 4 degrees of mutable. So in a sense, Black Moon Lilith is really sort of playing in there as well, even though we don't notice it in this chart. But if you do midpoint charts, you will notice that she is actually indeed opposite on the dial. I haven't got time to go into that completely. You'll have to join the CIA webinars to find out more. But this is the ACG map for the exact conjunction of Venus, Mars, and the Sun, or Venus and Mars in particular, opposite Jupiter, and it goes right through Japan. And of course, Japan has just been having so many earthquakes in the last week. So what I also looked at, I'll talk about that in a minute, but we can follow the lines going through here. There's a whole conglomeration, you know, following the line. If you follow my arrow down here, up through the east of Africa, up through what's that, all the Himalayas, and there's always a big earthquake zone through that area, and also through Australia. And that's interesting as well because of what we said before about the social media ban just having happened here as well for anyone under 16 who, no longer can be on social media. And this is now the geodetic map. So 18 cardinal. I would also pay attention to anything on that map that sits on 4 degrees of mutable. And so therefore that's where Black Moon Lilith is, or Black Moon Lilith is rising. But anyway, look at this.
Uranus will be there this year.
Yeah,
Uranus will be there
coming up.
for
Yeah, yeah,
Gemini
yeah, yeah.
coming up. Yeah.
Um, and look at over New York. This is where we've got the conjunction in a sense again, but this is the geodetic map. So for anyone that doesn't understand this, the ACG map is the actual exact time that shows on the world, and we can see where everything is rising. The geodetic map is a fixed map that begins at 0 Aries in Greenwich and is kind of calculated all the way across in the 12 signs of 30 degrees each. So every area in the world has a geodetic coordinate. And so if we're looking at zodiac degrees, we know exactly where to look on the map of the world, right? So anyway, that's an interesting thing. And we can see that this whole conglomeration is also near New Zealand, going through the middle of Africa, rising up through Asia there, over New York, and over through the Pacific. So we keep an eye on that as it goes. I love geodetic maps. Ariel and I have talked about that a few times, but this is not what this whole talk is about. I just wanted to point them out.
Julia
Um,
has presented that quite a bit lately at different places. I'll be teaching a class on geodetics this coming spring, spring in the northern hemisphere. That is in for Kepler. So it's a two. It's just 2 weekends, two short classes
okay,
each
yeah,
weekend.
great.
But just to give anybody who wants to give an overview of I'm going to do a tour of the world and where the hot spots are.
Yeah, you can find a bit, more stuff as well in different panels that we've done over the years as well with the geodetic maps. But so have a think about for yourselves the current cycle that Venus is, let's say, in the middle of, and also the current cycle that Mars is at the end of and about to begin. And these are the dates. And it's interesting to see the coming Mars cycle as it begins a new cycle in January. The retrograde will be 0 Virgo, like the exact opposition will be at 0 Virgo, and then the next cycle after this one starts at 1 Aries in 2028. So, is there a
So,
start point in 2028 in Aries? No. Is there? No, 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 no.
no, it would be
No.
Gemini.
It'll be Gemini. Yes, of course. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll be the one
It's
after.
a
Yeah.
presidential election in the United States is every 4 years, and it's like always been happening under the Gemini star points. To give you a clue of
Yeah, yeah, right. Anyway, that's it for the Mars Venus conjunction. Now we're going to move into the Venus star point more so. And the best way to understand the Venus cycle is look at this map again from AstroSeek, and follow the lines, so to speak. So what we're looking at is the Capricorn point that is happening here, and it's the outer conjunction. And to understand that in 4 years' time, there'll be a retrograde in this Capricorn point as the inner conjunction. So every star point has 2 points, an inner and an outer, that have a 4 years sort of separation. But to return to this same phase or outer conjunction or inner conjunction, it's an 8 year cycle. And there's 5 points, and magically it creates this pentacle in the sky. And we really associate the outer conjunction, which is happening now, as the fullness of Venus's cycle, even though we don't see her, and an inner conjunction beginning during the retrograde as the new beginning of the cycle, just to be clear on that. So in effect, there's kind of two stars working together, but they're on top of it's the one star. It's the one star. You can look more closely at these dates, and yeah, the rhythm of this star is amazing. Again, we're not moving into this so much today as we've done much of this before. But to get to
Really
know
is
this
magic how it works that way, that both the interior and the exterior conjunctions would wind up
are
on
the
the same
same.
spot for
Yeah,
all five, that Venus does this. And no wonder this pentagram has been used for magic for so many
yeah,
centuries,
yeah,
because it really is a magical pattern that is unlike anything else that is going on out there in the sky. It
yeah,
is really
absolutely.
the magic of Venus, Earth, and Sun
Yeah.
together.
And yeah, we've always said like to work with the magic is understanding your own patterns, understanding where this star happens in your chart, understanding how it's moved, looking back at the cycle, things that were happening for you in your life and how they, let's say, resurface, repeat, all of those things, the reasons to work with the cycle, and just to know that the star slowly moves backwards in time through the zodiac so that this Aries star point will be moving into Pisces over the next 10 years or so. And the Scorpio point that we have also happening in 2026 in October will be the last point ever in Scorpio in our time. um,
Right.
yeah, so, and that's a big one. We had the first one in Libra sort of jump in 4 years ago around the time the Queen died, and, there was other things happening, and AI began, like this new sort of creative sort of burst was coming on the scene. Really interesting cycle to follow in a big macrocosm kind of story and also the microcosm. So the smaller 9.9.5 month cycles to the 19-month cycle to the 4 year cycle to the 8 year cycle to the 250-year cycle. It gets bigger and bigger. Anyway, that's for another time. So just to know that there's two different versions of Venus star point, the inner one, the retrograde when she's in front of the sun, and the one we're experiencing now where she's behind the sun. And they're both Kazimis. One's just the longer embrace, and the other one's a quick, short reset. Um, so, as we're moving now from the Aries retrograde point to the Capricorn direct point, the morning star will transition to the evening star, sorry, until the Scorpio point in October. Ariel, tell us a little bit how you work with this overlap of, we've gone from Aries, we've seen so much sort of to do with the Aries point, over the last few months, but we're again seeing this Capricorn coming in. And then as Capricorn establishes itself as the star point, ruling over the evening sort of 9.5 months, we will begin to see this Scorpio point come into being, you know, 6 months down the track or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the, a lot of I do my 9 months lunar plan, my 9 month calendar planning from one star point to the next. I see where it's falling in my chart, what house, and also the other thing to note is, and I'll say this when I present my slides, but the Aries star point has really, we look to Mars as the significator,
Yep.
and Mars hasn't been retrograde this year. So it's been slow, keeping its course, going through many signs. And so I've been watching as Mars changes signs, how the shifts are, because it's still governing the
Yep.
overall star point that's operating behind the scenes. When we go into Capricorn, it's going to be governed by Saturn, and Saturn's not going to be changing signs once it gets into in February, once it gets into Aries. I mean, for the
Mm.
first month, it will still be in Pisces, but then you're going to see a big shift in February when it goes into Aries, but it will remain there for the whole duration of the rest of this Capricorn star point period, because Saturn will not move out of Aries. The only main thing you'll want to notice is that Saturn will go retrograde at somewhere in the middle of this cycle. And so that's a date maybe to watch as well. But that's really how I work with them. From,
Mm.
I watch
Yeah.
the significator of the star point, the planet, and also other planets aspecting the star point during the year. Like 17 Capricorn or 16 Capricorn, where the star point is a fixed point really for this 9 months, and it's an anchor point.
Yeah.
And so anything coming across 16 Capricorn, the moon every month, um,
Yeah.
other planets aspecting it as we go through the year, that's another thing you
Yeah.
can look at too. Like
Yeah.
anything in astrology.
Yeah, it's like an eclipse point. Yeah, it's there, it's been seeded, and we know it's happening even if it's before, and it's still active, after the exactness. So yeah, interesting to watch. So this is where we are now, Venus here behind the sun, and we're moving into this evening star phase for 9.5 months. Um, just to know what it looks like as one 19-month cycle. Okay. And what's that? Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I did that. Oh,
It's
uh,
dancing.
they're dancing. Oops. So yeah, the Capricorn star point in January, evening star happens, comes down to Earth for the retrograde for the Scorpio star point. But we'll have more information about that as Ariel talks about some charts that she's gathered. So the aspects for this are very similar to what we looked at for the Venus Mars conjunction. 72 degrees to Neptune, opposite Jupiter in Cancer. The moon is, of course, a little bit earlier than it was in Virgo for that conjunction. And still in its fullness, really, isn't it? As you were saying before. So just to keep an eye on that. Um, and yeah, just wanted to point out the midpoints for if you use the midpoint dial, 16 degrees of Capricorn is bringing in, or is the midpoint for Pluto and Neptune. It is the midpoint for Eris and Mercury at this time, and Ceres and Eris, which is opposite 2 degrees of mutable. So if you think about 16 Capricorn being, hot spot, you can also think about 2 degrees of mutable being involved as well. Okay. So if you've got anything at 2 degrees of mutable, which I have my moon, I'm very aware of this. It's also because 2 degrees of mutable Pluto and Neptune, it is the midpoint of Neptune and Pluto at the moment as well. So again, anyone got 2 degrees of mutable, Gemini, Sag, Pisces or Virgo.
I
This will
have it.
be really sort of, you do, there you go. It will be very much activated as well in part of your story. And
Yeah.
just was I going to say there, just with Eris and Mercury being involved, I mean, Eris is, the outspoken one, and Mercury is about also speaking. So I'm kind of thinking that we're going to hear a lot of things that, like, the Epstein files being released just recently is bringing up all these names and all that kind of stuff. It's all like the inconvenient truth that, a lot of people don't want to know. I see that as this Eris Mercury combination. And Ceres has a lot to do with the markets. So, we see Ceres, the goddess, on top of stock exchanges all over the world, as the goddess of agriculture. So, as well as, the goddess of, let's say, the democratic voice, we often see Ceres as. So, anyway, there's a lot sort of more in it than we might see just from the surface. Um, what do you think, Ariel? Anything about that you want to add?
No, I think you covered it backwards, forwards, and
Okay.
sideways,
All
and
right.
inside out, outside in.
Lovely. Oh,
That's a lot
sorry.
of really great research and material you've done. I mean, this gets into a much deeper layer using midpoints and dials and geodetic maps and things. This is not really, you don't have to understand all of this to really get the essence of what we're trying to say here with this Capricorn star point. But I think it's great information to have for further study.
Yeah, well, again, with the CIA, there's many interested in the deeper studies, let's say. So I was just going to, well, this is what the dial looks like, okay? And it's a 90-degree dial, so everything that's cardinal is on top of each other. In the first 30 degrees, everything that's fixed is the next 30 degrees. So you can see Pluto there, Uranus, and everything else is mutable for the next 60. We can see that Neptune is, coming up to the 0 point. So everything that's in a cardinal sign will be seen in the first 30 degrees. And so when we put the arrow on the dial, we can see that it relates to 2 degrees of mutable across, right? And this is how we get the midpoint structures. And then we can see Mercury, Eris, we can see Neptune and Pluto as being very much this conjunction or Venus star point. And we use very tight orbs, 1 degree orbs for this. So anyway, keep an eye out. Just wanting you to notice the 2 degrees mutable is also very much impacted. So let's think about the Capricorn star point themes for a minute before we swap over to Arielle's slides. So yeah, Capricorn star point themes, again, as we've been looking at them every 4 years, Ariel, we do know that it's very much about Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn being about, achievements or ambition, acknowledgements, responsibilities that might be more from a personal sense, but it's very much about governments and corporations and, the rich and let's say the ones that have climbed the ladder, so to speak, or the ones that we put up there. It's very much to do about the global situation or economy and how everything's managed for us. So yeah, um, it's a pretty serious one, as you said, ruled by Saturn. And then if we look back at the last times that we had a Capricorn outer conjunction star point or Venus star point, back in 2002, Jupiter was also in Cancer. Okay, so 24 years ago, it was also in Cancer. And this star point happened just a few months after September 11. So of course we remember that time as going, who's responsible? What really happened? What's this war on terror all about? I mean, remember back then, like that was intense. Were you already looking at the Capricorn point back then, Ariel?
I started my research 2004.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. In 2010, again, the outer conjunction, the Arab Spring revolutions kind of spread like wildfire across the Arab nations there. In 2018, at night, it was at 19 Capricorn. You can see how they move slowly backwards, okay, through the degrees. It was conjunct Pluto. And I remember we talked about this a lot, Ariel, because, it's the cycle of Venus is 251 years, so it's very close to the Pluto year. So the largest cycle where, let's say, this Capricorn star point would take to come all the way around the zodiac again and come back here is 251 years. So therefore, the Pluto and the Venus cycle are very much combined, and this is the time that they were actually conjunct for the star point. It was the rise of the Me Too movement soon after the protests for gun violence started with the youth, interestingly, in the US. And I remember there was talks about Oprah becoming president. So there's also those talks now about the others become who's going to become president next round, yeah, as well. Um, and interestingly, just, the 2022 point that was retrograde, it was conjunct Chiron, I remember. Oh, no, that was the Aries point, sorry. Um, but what we started seeing was, mandates being, coming through in regard to COVID, because that was sort of at the end of the COVID years, class actions taking place. vaccination legalities, the invasion of Ukraine, and the Depp and Amber case is interesting because it started in this Capricorn and when the Libra point happened. And remember that like it went on for months, but it went highly televised, but it was under this Capricorn star there. Um, so anyway, so keeping those all those kind of things in mind. And these are some charts that I think Ariel might have some of these to look at, but the Ukraine independence chart has 16 degrees Capricorn rising, so the star point is coming there. Maybe it's hopeful that something will be shifted for them or some kind of plan to, stop what's going on there will actually eventuate through this timing. Um, the invasion chart of the Ukraine also has 16 Capricorn rising. The rest you can kind of read through yourself. Oops, I didn't finish that one properly. So this is the invasion chart of the Ukraine, and we can see 16 Capricorn here and all those planets. It actually, the invasion did happen with Venus and Mars conjunction as well. So that's very interesting. But of course, it was, not this one with the sun there. So maybe something will be moving through there, moving past. And Jupiter also coming up to the seventh house, in a sense, looks promising, as in, maybe some more help. I mean, there's a lot of countries and nations helping from the outside, but there's other things being activated in a sense to prevent Russians doing more to other countries that might be affected. And this is the Ukrainian independence chart of 1991. And here we see this star point, or well, the Venus Mars as well on the nodal axis and on the chart. So, I mean, those two together, I'm thinking something's really going to shift through the Ukrainian landscape there.
Hmm.
You want to add
Well,
there?
it keeps threatening, they keep threatening it to happen. They've
Yeah.
tried and tried. They've been trying and trying. So we'll
Mm.
see what the Capricorn. But I
Yeah.
was noticing the correlation of the return of the Capricorn star point to the beginning of the war there, star point being Capricorn. That was
Yeah.
the morning star, Capricorn,
Yeah.
when the
Right.
war began.
And
And
now it's
now
going
we're
to be
going into
the,
the evening
yeah.
star.
So this
And
is,
ancient literature asserts that evening star is the peace time and that the morning star is the war time. But one of my students and teachers of the Venus star um, in Turkey
yeah,
has
she wrote
done
an
extensive
article for
research.
Time Route,
Yeah.
for Time
Oh, right,
Dates. Yeah.
Dita. Yeah,
Yep.
and she did that research on war and whether it was more leaning towards morning star, evening star, and she did not come up with this with in the modern world at least. I don't know how I can't remember how far back she went, but I think
Yeah.
in the modern world she did not find a correlation. I think in the ancient world they were following the planets and the cycles a little bit more carefully.
Yeah.
And Venus is the time, in the morning sky is the time to do war. And but it hasn't proved in the modern world. In the modern
Mm.
world, people just act on impulse and do it
Yeah,
when
they're not really
it's
looking
not
at all of
really
this.
planned
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting to think about that. And this is the Australia chart for the social media ban happening. I think, I mean, Venus is a very social social
Yeah,
planet.
yeah.
In the ninth house, which is interesting, all that sort of, stuff that comes from all over the world that can be on your social media. Opposite Jupiter in the third house. And quincunx to Pluto, exactly, like in Gemini. So, again, something that's sort of, like being taken away from the big wide
When does
world.
that law go into effect? That's such an interesting.
Last night, I think. Yeah,
Oh, last night.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
already in
yeah.
effect.
Or the night
So
before,
I'm
actually, I
thinking
think.
how many other countries might follow that. I guess
I think there's talk
Australia
of that.
is the
Yes.
testing ground, and you have to see how it plays out for a little bit before, everybody else jumps in. But I imagine this could be a trend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's been a lot sort of talked about that. So,
Especially with Capricorn, when you think of Saturn as a restrictive force, limiting and trying to get a rein on,
yeah.
um, the energy.
And look at this. I mean, just, oh, sorry, did it again. The Mercury on Saturn here as well, right?
Oh,
Interestingly,
yeah.
Pluto right above. So, but I mean, there's been interviews with the young ones, and they said, "Oh, we'll find ways to do their own, other
Yeah,
ways." So, yeah.
right.
So anyway, that was my section. But before I sort of stop showing my slides, we've got this amazing event coming up, haven't we, Ariel?
Yeah,
All
this is
about
exciting.
Venus, all about Venus. So it's coming, it's being, let's say, finalized now, and it's going to be another two or so. We're going to launch it in the new year for the whole information that you will need to come along. But pretty much, it started off as something that we were going to do in 2020, and of course, COVID happened. But now it's come back, and it's really great that Ariel, you are able to join us. So we have this great gathering of, well, let's say Venusian astrologers. So Ursula's doctor is our agent in Mexico, and her daughter Ale Hernandez. They have organized many kind of retreats and gatherings and know the best places in Mexico for accommodation, for food, all that kind of stuff. So they're putting all of that together. Ariel and I are coming as we're going to do workshops to do with Venus. Ariel, you're going to be talking about the Scorpio star point that is happening for the last time. Um,
Yeah.
and it will be actually all mostly themed on that Scorpio star point in a sense. We're going to Maya land where Venus was completely revered. Uriria Robles is a scholar on Mayan calendar, Mayan archaeology, and Venus in all these places. So she is going to take us on tours and talk to us about the understanding of Venus as the warrior goddess, as the evening goddess, and through the Mayan culture, and all these temples and observatories that were built to actually view Venus. So we're going to be there. Places like Chichen Itza, which is where, and we're actually going to be there at the equinox as well. So the equinox, the Libra equinox, and at the equinox, the Chichen Itza temple, or it's called the El Castillo, is when the shadow moves down the temple, and it
Hmm.
looks as though the dragon or Quetzalcoatl which
The
is
serpent.
the
Yeah.
serpent, which is actually related to Venus. Kukulkan is known as Venus. And so this serpent goes to the underground, what it
Especially
appears to be.
with the Scorpio star coming up,
Yeah.
it's relevant.
So we're going to be really kind of focused on this journey. So when you arrive, the whole theme of the experience is to move through with all this Venus inner work, outer work, beautiful sights, food, and experiences. Swimming in cenotes, which are kind of what do you call it? Water. I don't know if you call them ponds. No, they're not ponds.
Well, cenote, big, huge underground water, like almost like
Caves.
pools,
Yeah,
big,
caves.
large pools inside of caves.
If you
It's
dare, you don't
amazing.
have to do it. You
Yeah.
don't have to, but things like that. Anyway, it's going to be amazing, and I
Chocolate,
can't.
chocolate ceremony, Mayan chocolate, and very Venusian type of food and um, things like that.
And a
So
beautiful
yeah, it's going
place
to
that
be a
was,
real immersion in Venus.
yeah, a
Uh,
real
in
treat for
in
self.
Venus.
Anyway, the information's coming out in the next few weeks. But if you're interested in putting your name into what we call registration, so you'll be the first to get the information because we only will be having about 25 people. So do register for that if you are interested.
you know. So here we are, starting January 6th, going most of the year till October 23rd, the Capricorn Star Point. Now, I consider if these are the five star points that are this what I call the signs of the times. And even though every 9 months it changes to a different star point or cazimi, all five of the points are in operation. You can think of them as operating behind the scenes all the while. So even though we're just leaving behind the 2 degrees Aries star point that we just had in March, it's still operational for I would say the 8 year period. Okay. Um, and the one before that was 14 Gemini. That's still operational from 2024. The one we're going into is going to be 0 degrees, almost 1 degree Scorpio in October of 2026. And then following that, we will come into Leo in 2027, and that will be 19 degrees Leo. So some of the charts that I'm going to present actually are picking up star point energies from all five of these different star points. You'll see that while I'm focused on Capricorn, you'll also see that, as I said, the sign of the times for an 8 year period are these degrees. They're hot degrees, they're sensitive degrees, they can be used as um, sort of anchor points to any transits or anything else going over them. So it's quite interesting when you look at it this way. I wanted to introduce something that I'm very excited about. This is a new graphic representation from Enigma software, and it is showing the five Venus star points. This is just with the planets, but you can put asteroids and other points in if you want. But this one is kept very simple. The 5 points of the star in terms of where it's been, where it's going, and the highlighted one right now. And it shows, the exact degrees and whether it's an inferior or superior conjunction. So this was programmed
Fantastic.
by Jan
Yeah.
in
Mm.
the Netherlands. So thank you, Jan, for this. It's called Enigma software. Here's a bigger view of it, so we can actually see where the planets are and on the star points. As you see, the Aries star point is still picking up this Saturn Neptune energy. So that one's, even though we're saying goodbye to the Aries star point, it's still kind of active at this point. And then we've got these other star points happening as well. And you'll see coming into some of the charts that we're going to discuss. But I like this graphic representation a lot, and it's answered my prayers because I've been looking for a astrological software to display the five Venus star points. And there are some displays in other programs, but nothing quite as elegant and clean and easy
Well,
to,
it
to
doesn't put the aspects together. Like
right.
you can do it in Astro Gold and make the points, but you won't see the five-pointed star as you do in that one. So yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, so I love this. And so you can put in any date. You can put in your own, of course, and you can put in any date. And this is for the January 6th event. So this is the one I normally use, is Solar Fire astrological software. So this has got the planets and the asteroids in it, for a little bit more information about what's actually happening in this cycle. As you can see, and I think I centered this chart. I can't remember if I centered it over Washington or New York. It might have been over Washington. And what I find very interesting, if that's the case in the 10th house, and Washington and New York are fairly close together anyway. But um, the 10th house and politics and Capricorn and the government is very much featured, as well as the fact that on the geodetic map, Capricorn over Washington, D.C., Capricorn is the midheaven.
Mm,
The geodetic midheaven is about 13 degrees Capricorn, and the geodetic ascendant over Washington is about 26 Aries. So we have, still we have Chiron going over that point and Eris, as you can see, very close to that point. But what I found really interesting about the 13 degrees Aries on the ascendant for this is that Saturn is going to make its station retrograde at 13 Aries later this year, later in
mm,
2026. So the ruler of the star point, which is Capricorn, Saturn, and for the whole year, we're watching Saturn's movement. So I think we want to watch what happens when Saturn, as you can see right now, it's in the 12th house still with Neptune and Pisces, but it'll kick over into Aries pretty soon. And then later in the year, it will go retrograde on that 13 Aries point. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to make note of that you're going to see in some of these charts is 29 Leo on the moon. The moon at 29 Leo for this chart, because of the location, if you do it for, well, actually, any location is going to have the 29 Leo moon because it's for a specific time.
time,
The
yeah.
houses will change, but the moon will stay the same. So 29 Leo is a very interesting degree because it's also Donald Trump's ascendant degree, 29 Leo. And it's also the opposition of the America Sibley chart moon, which
Mm,
represents the people. I think it's around 28 Aquarius, that moon. And so this is 29 Leo. So I think between the president, the administration, the policies and politics of the time, and the actually where the American people stand, you're going to see a lot of opposition coming that way. This will truly be a year of opposition from the people to the policies of the government. And you're probably going to see a lot of cabinet changes and firings and the blame game going on, because in Capricorn, that's another thing that can often happen, is the idea of taking personal responsibility for your actions and um, facing the consequences of that. And the shadow side of Capricorn on that regard is passing the buck or blaming somebody else and trying to get out of facing the
well,
consequences.
someone does
So,
that very well, don't they?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, it's not hard to see how this might play out. And so many more ways that this might play out, but definitely uh, Mars is up there really strong, trying to stay in control, but we'll see. Saturn, how much power really there is here with Saturn in the 12th and Pisces conjunct Neptune. I think it's like um, I would say that um, it seems like we're in a lot of hot water right now.
Getting hotter as well.
Getting hotter by the moment. As you said, with the Venus and Mars, the heat, the
Yeah.
conductivity of heat for Venus. Venus is a conductor of heat, and Mars needs heat to kind of make itself potent. And that's another good reason why Mars and Venus have always been an attraction point.
Mm, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, the 29 or nearly, zero Virgo is, of course, Regulus, which represents kings and those in power and, those that don't do the right thing falling apart. So there's a lot of kind of symbolism there for sure.
Yeah, and of course, that is Donald Trump's ascendant, 29 Leo, and he has pretty much crowned himself king. He has
Mm,
made himself king.
yeah,
Um, you know,
yeah.
nobody else has, gone along. I mean, I don't know. Some people have gone along with that, but it's really interesting to see how this has played out. He's the man who's always wanted to be king.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's an evening star. These are just a few notes. 17 Capricorn, the Sabian symbol is a girl bathing in the nude. That to me conjures up pictures of what we've been hearing about all year. The Epstein files has been the number one story. It
Mm,
hasn't stayed out of the news more than a day or two for most of the year past. And there's more to come. And not that this symbol would relate to that kind of thing, but when you think of a girl bathing in the nude, you think of a girl, a young, not a woman. This is a
yeah.
girl in the nude. So it's more like exposing
Yeah,
things that are
yeah.
supposed to be covered up, that have normally been covered up. It's not covered up anymore. It's a full expose that's coming out.
Mm,
So I thought that was kind of interesting,
mm.
especially with Mars and Venus involved on either side of the sun. And one, as you said, starting the morning cycle and the other one starting the evening cycle. So there's, this juxtaposition of Mars and Venus going on
Yeah.
anyway here.
There's something that I
The
just thought about, Ariel. The Venus behind the sun is often, understood as Venus in the underworld, where the Inanna goes down into the underworld and she's exposed, fully
Yes,
exposed.
exactly.
Yeah,
Hanging on the
yeah,
hook, naked,
yeah,
to give up all of her garments.
yeah.
So a lot of exposés, also
Mm,
happening, which I think is also telling of that Saturn Neptune in the 12th in Pisces. I mean, you can try to hide as much as you can. You can try to lie as much as you can, but eventually it's all gonna,
it'll catch up.
Saturn does not do well in Pisces with Neptune. It just, it's all gonna melt away. It's all gonna
Yeah. And Jupiter's watching, remember? Very closely.
exactly, exactly.
Yes.
So, with both the Venus Star Point, and the Sun conjunct Mars, we've got a lot of Mars action this year. So we also want to watch Mars. We want to continue to watch Mars and what it's doing throughout the year, as well as Saturn. Um, 4 planets and 2 asteroids in Capricorn. So of course we're going to watch Saturn. Jupiter in Cancer is actually opposite the VSP, Venus Star Point, in mid-February and again in April. So I would watch those dates as well for Jupiter. When things come out, it's an opposition, right? It's big, it's something big. Um, so it is the chart cast for Washington, D.C. I thought that was true. Yeah, Washington, D.C., 13 Aries. And so I mentioned that before, but watch when Saturn goes up to 13 Aries and then turns retrograde. By the way, King Charles's midheaven is 13 Aries, and Saturn's turning retrograde this year on it. So I've got a few of the royals to show because I really believe that there's a lot of things going on in the royal family right now that are uh, really imploding, exploding and imploding. And I just wonder how that's all going to come out. Um, so, okay.
I
Um,
just I just noted that Jupiter will station retrograde at 50 or 15, 16 a Cancer. So yeah, so it's also very much aligned with its station as well.
mhm, mhm. Right, exactly. Oh, yeah. So we have a Saturn station in mid cardinal. We have a Jupiter station in mid cardinal. We have the star point and Mars, Cazimi in mid cardinal. cardinal energy is really potent. You know, it's really like wants to go, wants to move, wants to
Yeah.
act. It's also hitting angular houses. Again, this is for Washington. The moon is in the anaretic degree in Leo, as I mentioned, opposite some really important points in the United States chart. And you can look around the world, like whatever country you live in, and see how does that 29 Leo moon affect your place of living or maybe your country's chart as well. Um, and so what does all of that point to? It points to the need for compromise because the moon is opposite the US moon of the people, and or downright friction and over the top emotional reactions, like in large crowds reacting, large groups of people having an emotional outburst
Mm.
about whatever is going on. Now, the moon can also, it rules the tides, it rules the weather. I mean, the moon is very, very close to an opposition of uh, Pallas Athena, which I have found interesting because Pallas Athena is also uh, been traveling through Aquarius and is been on the USA moon, and Pallas is also there in the USA chart in Aquarius with the moon. So
Mm.
I think there's another thing about government, and I think women, Pallas Athena typically deals with women and women in politics and women in leadership positions. And I think the Capricorn energy of the star point is also going to be Capricorn is, after all, a feminine sign, so to speak, a yin sign, if you will. And so I think with Venus there, Venus and the Sun with Mars empowering it, I think you're going to see more female voices rising to, you know, rising up and coming out of the
Good.
corners, and having
Mm-hmm.
more of a voice now. So, yeah. So let's not forget that this star point happens on January 6th. And what is interesting, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like these star points are active for 8 years. These points are valid for 8 years. Now, the capital insurrection, which we call January 6th to shorten it, is like the same thing we do with 9/11. We don't call it the day the World Trade Center
Yeah.
was bombed. It was more
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's more like, no, 9/11, we all know what that is. Well, January 6th is the same thing. It's the day that the Capitol insurrection occurred in 2021. And so now the sun is right on the
Yeah.
sun of
Wow.
that
Mm.
day, this VSP with Mars,
Mm.
Venus, and the sun. So I think that's another thing that's going to be activated in the news cycle, or something is going to occur as a result of that January 6th occurrence. I also noted that Jupiter and Saturn were still very close in their new conjunction in the new air cycle, but Saturn was at 2 Aquarius on that day. And of course, we're going to have Pluto coming over that point.
Mm.
Pluto's already been over it once. It's now retrograde. It's going back. I mean, it's direct now, but it's going to go pass over it again another time. It's also going to pass over the Jupiter at 4 Aquarius. So I'd like to see if we if we come up with any new information from that day, and how that might be reflected in current events for the coming year. This was kind of interesting to see. Zoran Mamdani is the newly elected mayor of New York City with an overwhelming victory, called the first ever of so many boxes that were ticked in terms of him being elected, from his heritage and his religion and his everything. And it was and the campaign was fierce. They called him, the opponents of him called him, communist,
Mm.
socialist, jihadist, terrorist, every name in the book that you can think of. And he still won with an overwhelming majority. And I was looking at his North Node at 13 Capricorn conjunct Neptune at 14 Capricorn. And that so much reminded me of the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther
Mm.
King. It just,
Mm.
that energy coming together is like I have a dream. And he seems very pure in his intentions and very committed in his intentions with all that Capricorn, to really do something that's going to change things for New Yorkers. Now, the other thing is
Do
he's
you think he
the,
can
you
go
know, we
further? Do you think he can go further than being the mayor of New York, like politically, like in the American landscape?
um let's see what
Yeah, yeah,
happens
yeah.
at
Mm.
the Scorpio star point. I'm
Mm.
I'm saying wait and see because right now he's, the poster child for everything that has just
Yeah,
happened,
yeah,
and a
yeah.
lot of people are cheering it. But he has an exact Mars square Saturn in his chart, as you can see. And the start point of Scorpio in October is going to be right on zero Scorpio on his Mars and Mercury conjunction. And while I do feel that that can energize his Mars and make things, because the start point really, enables, empowers, gives a lot of energy to a planet or wherever it's falling in the chart, it really gives it shines a bright light on it, even though Cazimi it's invisible Venus. You can't see Venus, but the sun and
It
Venus
will be
together are
the
such a
retrograde.
luminous aspect,
Mm. Yeah,
So
it will be
what do
the
you think?
retrograde, won't it? All over there. The
It's gonna
retrograde Venus.
retrograde. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a morning
Mm.
star, so it's gonna go over those points,
Mm.
several times. All of those points, the
Mm.
sun, his Mars, his Mercury. Let's see by October where he is, what he's been able to accomplish, or is he fighting forces in New York that are so powerful that he can't get anything done because it's a Mars Saturn square and he's being um, sort of like
Mm.
Obama was, he's being forcibly strapped to a
Retained. Yeah,
chair,
right.
his hands
Mm.
tied. He was like hardly could get anything done because the Republicans just kept saying, "We're not going to let you do anything. We don't care
Mm.
that you were elected president. We're going to block everything you try to do." And they're still trying to block him. Still trying to attack Obamacare, the health care that he brought in, and just so many things. They haven't gotten over that yet.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and so we'll see how effective Mamdani is going to be. Of course, a lot of us are hoping that he can deliver what he said he was. I also find it interesting when you asked about could he go into a bigger national scene? Well, look at his South Node. It's at 13 Cancer, and the American
It's the moon
sun,
sun,
as we
yeah.
know,
Mm.
is
And then,
there.
of course, the geodetic coordinates are his nodes of
His
Washington.
nodes are right on those
Yeah,
geodetic
yeah.
angles.
Mm.
So of Washington. So yeah, I think he
Mm.
could.
Mm.
And I love also to see that these babies uh, born in the 90s that were babies just a short while ago when we were doing the chart of the conjunction of Neptune and Uranus in the 90s and going, oh wow, what are these kids going to become with all this Neptune and this utopian vision of the world, and what are they going to do? And I've already seen a few charts of these people coming to age and how what their dream of doing for the world is. So I think he really does have a greater dream. It's a
Mm.
powerhouse that he has in Capricorn. you know,
He's a
and
worker,
it's all governed by
he wants,
Saturn.
yeah, he wants to get things done.
And Saturn's at zero Aquarius, where the Jupiter Saturn conjunction was in 2020, setting off a 20-year cycle. So, again, his chart is quite, it's really, he's got a lot of points that fit to the signs of the times, you know.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah.
I just, we all hope for his safety. Because
Mm.
that's a volatile thing coming up with the star point, but I'm also looking at his Venus Jupiter conjunction there, and I think that's a lot of protection and a lot of angelic kind of presence there as well, um, with the Venus Jupiter. So we'll see.
Mm. Yeah, nice. Mm.
So this is the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's been in the news a lot lately because he's
Follow
been
him
the
on
only,
Instagram. I
yeah,
follow
he's
him.
been
Funny.
really, really vocal, very
Yeah.
vocal and verbal against Donald Trump's policies. And he's been the one that hasn't been afraid to speak out. And I thought, I remember doing his chart several years ago and his moon was in Capricorn. I wonder if it's anywhere near the star point.
Mm.
Bingo.
Oh,
There
yeah.
it is,
Wow. Yeah,
16
yeah.
Capricorn.
Right. Wow.
So you're going to
Square
see
the
a lot more
sun.
of him
Mm.
this year, you know.
Mm. Oh, perfect. Yeah, wow.
Um, he's going to be the likely Democratic frontrunner candidate for president in 2028. I can't see anybody else in the field right now that could
Mm.
surpass him. And we tend to look to California a lot to represent the Democratic side of things, because it's a state that has really um, more or less led the the charge in progressive values and progressive thinking and things like that. So, and the other thing is, I
Mm.
kind of peeked at his chart on election day 2028. Jupiter will be in Libra exactly on his sun that day. So that's not hurting his chances either.
Mm.
His own Venus star point is 6 degrees Virgo, and it's conjunct his natal Venus at 4 Virgo. I've always said that when Venus is conjunct its own star point, it's a really strong messenger of Venus. It's like a carrier of Venusian energy. And of course, he's a Libra. He's got that Venusian charm. His south node's in Libra. He knows how to smile for the camera. He knows how to say things people want to hear. He knows how to say things that people will like him for. He wants to be
Mm.
liked, you know.
Mm.
So you know, that's part of it too. And he wasn't born that far out from the conjunction of Pluto and Uranus in the 60s, as you can see in Virgo there. So he's got, he is thinking of the bigger picture, the world, and all of that. And I think aspirational. Um, so we'll see. And when the star point, actually in the future, when the star point goes into Libra, again, his south
Be on
node
his
will be picked up,
node.
his
Yeah.
nodal axis. And the geodetic ascendant descendant of the United States is really around 26 Aries and Libra.
I think it's 21, Ariel. I think it's 21, 22, because I remember when Eris was there in 2016 at 21 Aries, it was when Trump got elected. So it's more 21 than 26, but anyway.
Okay. The
Yeah.
difference is that
I've got my book here.
the Sibley
Mm.
chart is based in Philadelphia, and the capital is Washington. And while they're not that far apart, there are a few degrees difference
Yeah.
on the geodetics. So I think there's
Mm.
something at 26, and it might be the Philadelphia one or it
Mm.
might be
It's
the
actually
New York one.
23. Sorry, it's 23. 23.
Yeah,
So
23.
anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
26 is, but
Maybe
23 for
Philadelphia.
Washington.
Yeah.
Art,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Way. It's right in there.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
been wrong before. I predicted really big things for Kamala Harris in the past. I think it was the past cycle of in 2019 going into 2020. But well, she made it all the way to presidential candidate. She made it all the way to vice president. She made it to presidential candidate. So she got further than most
Yeah, yeah, for
women,
sure.
almost any other woman has gotten in America, but she didn't quite make it, to the presidency. But I was looking at her chart and the star points in that and thinking, wow, she's going to be in high focus. And Venus is going to be
Mm.
good to her, be nice to her, but wasn't quite enough. There was a more overpowering candidate there, obviously. So we'll take a look at Gavin Newsom and see what happens.
Mm. Very
For
interesting.
some
That,
Now to
yeah.
change course a little bit, Jeffrey Epstein has been in the news almost every single day this year. Nobody has wanted to drop that story, and for good reason. It's a story that actually needs to come out. If you're at all sensitive to what the victims went through, it's not something that should be hidden any longer. But we all know who he is. No need to go into the history of it. But looking at that star point, I was just kind of, I had to really go, wow, 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 wow. Talk about
Yes. Chiron and
Chiron
Uranus. Wow. Yes.
and Uranus. And this is, right on the ascendant descendant. Now, a lot of people have a Chiron Uranus opposition. And so I'm not going to say that there's aberrant sexual behavior in that conjunction, but it is possible. There's aberrant behavior in general with that opposition. And because it's a wild card. Uranus is a wild card, and Chiron's a little bit on the wild side. And so when you've got the two together, opposition, you've also got RFK Jr. has that same opposition, and there's other people I could mention,
There's
but
a it's a very
you know,
long opposition. It's like goes for 20 years or something. It's a
it goes
really
for a
long,
very long
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not
I've
saying
got one.
everybody will have that, but
Yeah.
they'll have some kind of wild streak in them. You know, it may not be sexual, but in his case, obviously, it was sexual because when you look
Mm.
at this is the seventh house, Uranus, and that's Chiron on the ascendant. But then when you look at his Mars Venus, they're right together and they're aspecting almost totally. They're feeding right in to the
Mm.
Uranus Chiron opposition. So we have a lot of the Mars Venus action going on there, and then you've got Pluto in the eighth house as well. Um, but
It's also that
this
Jupiter
is
in Taurus ruling Mars and Venus, it's like hungry, like Taurus is like, very, very much into, what it wants. So that I can see that very activated there as well.
yeah, exactly.
It trines the
And then
ascendant too, doesn't it? Yeah.
right. And then,
Mm.
0 degree Aquarius sun, that's also on that Saturn Jupiter conjunction of 2020 and for this 20-year cycle. And it's also squaring the upcoming Scorpio star point at 0 Scorpio
Mm.
that's coming up in October. So I don't think
Hmm.
Jeffrey Epstein is fading
Is
from
going away quickly. That's
It's
right.
not going away quickly. Yeah,
Be more and more uncovered. Oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Great
Okay.
example.
So
Mm.
the next one I have, as we know, Andrew has already suffered some pretty serious consequences as a result of his connection to Jeffrey Epstein. And I think all of his titles were removed. He's been banished from his home.
Yeah.
what will become of him and where he will go from here, I don't know. I've heard some stories reporting that he's got a mansion waiting for him, like a palace in the Middle East, somewhere in Bahrain,
He'll be all
or
right.
he's going to be taken care of. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not going to be suffering too much, except for what Capricorn actually suffers from the most, and that is public humiliation and shame.
Mm,
His Saturn
mm,
is at 14 Capricorn, right there on this upcoming
yeah.
cluster
Yeah.
of Capricorn. And there's the black moon, 14 Cancer, right across from it. So he's also, like Jeffrey Epstein, got a very tight Mars Venus conjunction. They
Mm,
both had what's been being revealed is they both had overwhelming sexual appetites, and that nothing could satisfy them. It was like a hunger that couldn't be, a thirst that couldn't be quenched. It was like
mm,
it just wanted more and more and more. And I just find that
mm,
interesting. I don't think I've seen that in every Mars Venus conjunction I've seen. And, I've seen a lot of them in people's charts over the years, but in this particular case, it's definitely true there. What I also wanted to point out is his Pluto and his Venus star point. His natal Venus star point is 8 Virgo, and he's a morning star, of course. Conjunct Pluto. So the Venus and Pluto are tied together to begin with.
mm.
And then Virginia Roberts Giuffre's natal Venus is 8 Virgo,
Oh,
right
wow.
on his
All right.
Venus star point. So there's that connection right there. And his
Yeah, wow.
Pluto, of course, there
Mm,
on her natal Venus. Her chart is really interesting too. I didn't bring it into this discussion because it's got other features in it that I will be addressing in other classes in the future. But um, she was born with Venus and Mercury conjunct in Virgo in the second house. And I just thought, boy, you wouldn't think of that going in, but as a victim of trafficking, Mercury, second house,
mm.
Venus, Virgo, like a slave, a sex
Yeah,
slave, a
right.
trafficked
Yeah.
sex slave. It just fits the description. It fits the metaphors there.
Mm, mm.
Um, so he's suffering, so when the Venus star point shows up on your Saturn, if you see it coming, you want to kind of mind your P's and Q's. You want to take responsibility for your actions. You want to fess up to your mistakes and publicly say you're sorry
Mm,
to either whoever you've hurt or lied to or whatever, because the public has a way of forgiving. We all make mistakes, and we're forgiven a lot more easily when we actually truly feel sorry for what we've done. And when we can say, okay, that was not correct. And now I'm going into rehab or something. I'm going into therapy for this or whatever. It's sort of like a sex addiction is probably like other addictions in terms of it needs to be treated
yeah.
as an illness, and it
Yeah.
needs certain therapies to help people with it. So I think that his mistake was in denial, 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 all this time, and then ultimately settling, paying off, and these people in power that get away with these kind of things that you know
Yeah.
has happened
It's really the
forever.
theme of the Capricorn star point, isn't it? Sort of coming to bite you.
The other thing is, as I mentioned, Saturn is going retrograde at 13 Aries. So it's stationing this year, square his own Saturn. So we'll see and the black moon. And so we'll see how that plays out also. Well,
Mm.
we could see maybe what the actual consequences are, because obviously a Saturn squared to natal Saturn is also going to have you facing the music. So Deepak Chopra was another one who came up in the Epstein files. And I wanted to show this because not everybody, we don't always look at the progress chart. And I
Mm.
wanted to show that this works in progressions too. This is his secondary progressed in the outer wheel. And look at his Sun Mars conjunction up here, 17
Mm.
Capricorn,
Oh
18
wow, it's like a
Capricorn.
repeat, isn't it? Yeah. Jeez. Mm.
Exactly. And
Mm.
so, yeah, yeah, it's a repeat. What years did you say that was? Well, it's not with Venus. I think
What
you
year
weren't
was he
sure.
born? Well, no, I mean it's a progression. So, yeah,
He
let me
was
think.
born in 1946, I believe.
Yeah, no, it was 62 and 1930. So, yeah, it wasn't that time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
was born in October, late October, and there again, there's that sun, his natal sun, coming up on 28 Libra, conjunct Chiron, 27. But look at that
Mm,
stellium in the eighth house.
mm,
When I saw that Scorpio in the eighth house and all the planets in the eighth house, I thought, boy, there's a lot of secrets there. There's definitely a lot of secrets there. And I know you and I have talked in the past about the planetary nodes and the heliocentric south node of Mercury and Mars travel together very tightly. And they're right on his Mercury
on
Mars
my, yeah,
conjunction in
right,
Scorpio.
yes. Ah.
So I
Hmm.
thought
Well,
that
he's
was
been such a
interesting.
big voice, isn't he, in the world for therapy and deep, transformation and spiritual guidance. So, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And Jupiter, oh, well, hang on, Jupiter's on there now. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I
Progressed
think that
Jupiter.
was a big shocker for a lot of people
Mm.
that he wound up um, being mentioned in the files. Yeah.
Yeah. Who else
So
will be mentioned in the files? Are they kind of releasing names here and there, or is it, there's not just one big list that's been released? We're just hearing things
what has
sporadically.
been released so far is the Jeffrey Epstein estate has released a whole lot of documents, and that's where all
Emails.
these emails that have been
Yeah,
published have come from.
right.
The government has yet to, the FBI or whoever is controlling it, as they're blacking out
Yeah,
names
right. Redacting
so that
everything.
we can only imagine whose names they're blacking out. Before they're
Mhm.
releasing them to the public, they're in the hands of the FBI, who are controlled by Trump right now.
Oh,
So we'll
gee.
see what else is to come out. But when
Mm.
Trump said, sure, release the files, I think he was probably aware that a lot of Democrats um, were named in the files, and people like Deepak Chopra, people that he's no big fan of, and that he was very happy to see exposed in this. So, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, a lot of things that we're not going to know, but we're
Yeah.
getting
Well,
to know a little bit more as we go.
yeah. I mean, that's the usual thing anyway. Like we know there's so much we don't know and we'll never know and we're not told everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. Who have I got next? Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit now. We're over at Prince William. I did think with King Charles having Saturn stationing on his midheaven this year, that we're really going to see, some kind of really dramatic shift in his role as king, and whether it's his health or whether it's, just a decision.
Mm.
um, he's getting up there in age too, but not beyond the point. I mean, his mother lived what, another 20 years more. So, but I don't know that I don't really think he's got that
Got it in
long.
him. Yeah. Mm.
They have said he has cancer. I'm not sure what stage. I'm not sure if they've said how long they think he has, but I know that William has been stepping up and taking on a more proactive role as of late. But look at that signature in William's
Mm.
chart. He's got that Sun Moon conjunction in Cancer, and it's exactly trine Jupiter at the midheaven. If that's not a king, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Jupiter's the ruler of the chart because he's Sag rising. So the Scorpio star point that's coming up in October will feature
You're right there.
right on
Mm.
his Jupiter, trining
Wow.
his sun.
Mm.
So there's another one.
That's quite telling, isn't it, in a sense? Yeah. Because otherwise it will be 4 years until the star point. Well, it's never going to happen again exactly on Scorpio, at the Scorpio
Now
point.
it's going to go
Yeah.
back to Libra.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
when in October this year, it's the last Scorpio star point for 100 years, and we say goodbye to Scorpio. And I also think
Mm.
that's why this very large sex scandal is being revealed in the last at the last
Yeah,
breath
right.
of the
Yeah, yeah.
Scorpio, because when I was doing my research on the Venus star in the early days, early like 2004 is when I began, I noticed that every time the star point came back to Scorpio, there was another sex scandal.
Mm.
And that not only just every 4 years when it happened, but when any particularly big planet passed over early Scorpio, that those early Scorpio degrees, another sex scandal, like CEOs or royal
Yeah.
people or politicians or disgraced athletic coaches or whatever. It was like it was like these big scandals would erupt. And I thought, this is really interesting. It's all happening in these early degrees of Scorpio. And then I thought, interesting, because we're coming to the last of the Scorpio right now. And it's like you would think, because Scorpio is a sign that keeps secrets, that is likely to cover certain elements up about, oh, I don't want to reveal this, so I'm going to keep this to myself. And some things should be kept secret, but other things are like, no, you can't keep the secret. This involves, too many other
Mm,
people and all
mm,
that. So it's interesting that it is the last of the Scorpio star points. It's bringing up the biggest sex scandal of probably the century,
mm.
other than the Catholic Church, which was also being implicated
Yes,
in a
that's
lot of
right.
those
Yeah, yeah.
scandals around the early 2000s, when I was
Yeah.
starting to look at the all the Scorpio stuff that was
Mm,
going on, you know.
mm. Yeah, and then I'm not Epstein. What was the other guy? The TV, the film producer. What's his name?
Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, Weinstein. Yes, that was around the Scorpio star point, wasn't it? Yes, as well. Mm.
Yeah. A little bit later, but still, yeah. And then there was a big athletic coach, University of Pennsylvania, I think, there was a coach that was abusing the students,
Yeah, the
a
athletes.
few,
Yeah.
all
Mm.
the young athletes. I think in some of the Olympic training circles, we found certain coaches also abusing some of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
athletes, the young athletes. So yeah, this is like widespread. This is not just like in Jeffrey
Yeah.
Epstein's
Yeah.
island.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been going
Absolutely.
on everywhere, all around, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is the thing that needs to come, that we need to kind of
Quite tragic, isn't
um,
it? Whew.
if Pluto's going to get rid of anything, it needs to be this.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, let's look at Princess Catherine, because she's obviously related to this, um, to William, and to what and the future of what's going to happen here. Her sun is 19 Capricorn, her moon is 18 Cancer, so she's fitting right into this
Yeah, right.
cycle as
Wow.
well.
Mm.
Her natal VSP is 17 Aries, so that's exactly square this lineup that we're
Hmm.
having in January. And her own Venus Star Point, which I found so interesting. I mean, not her Venus Star Point, her ascendant is 19 Leo, and the 2027 Leo Star Point is exactly at 19 Leo. So just like with
Mm.
Charles,
Mm.
William, and Catherine, all their charts are, being
Singing,
reconfigured. Now,
yes.
Catherine's gone through a
Mm.
lot, obviously in 2018 and again in 2022, the star point of Capricorn was 18 degrees of Capricorn. So that 8 year cycle that started in 2018 and is just coming to a close now with the 16 Capricorn one is was on her sun, her moon, and quincunx her ascendant. And of course, she had a cancer diagnosis as well and has been undergoing treatment. And, a lot of things have happened in this last 8 years for her. And uh, there were also allegations of William having an affair that surfaced. So she's undergone a lot of her little Cancer moon has undergone a lot of uh, what I would say personal trauma during this time.
Mm. Yes, interesting. Wow. And then the Scorpio
Yes.
star point will be, well, kind of on her IC or very
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
With
I
Williams
think,
on the midheaven. So it's kind of interesting, isn't it?
uh-huh. Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Like reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like she's holding down the family. I mean, yeah, the people. I think right now she's the leading figure in the royal family in terms of popularity um, in the UK right now.
Mm.
Uh, because there have been so many others that have gone through so many scandals and so many,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Can't
many
trust them. That's right.
situations that they're looking to somebody,
Well, they
looking for
need
somebody
a
to
new
like
Diana. Yes.
exactly, just and as I've said
Is her
before, in
moon near Diana's sun? In that sense? Like I can't remember what
pretty
Diana's,
close,
she's
yeah, pretty
pretty
close.
close. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Or the
think
nose.
Diana's sun was 10 degrees
Oh, okay.
Cancer, and her
Okay.
Mercury was somewhere maybe a little further
Right, right,
along, but
right.
yeah, very close. But what I've mentioned before in the Aries star point talks was that Diana was an Aries star point, Catherine is an Aries star point, and Megan is an Aries star point.
Right, right,
So
right.
both of Diana's boys married Aries star points. That was just like their mother, women who had that Aries spark, that
Yeah, yeah,
Aries fire of, you know,
yeah.
um,
Mm.
you
It's
know,
kind of embedded in this story, that this is what works for me as I grew up with it.
exactly, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
amazing how
So
this Venus works. Mm.
So then I just wanted to give an example. Her star point isn't actually affecting too much this year exactly, except we could say that her Jupiter's, which is at 19 Cancer, her Saturn's at 22 Capricorn. It's in the field there. It's maybe within orb, but it's not exact. But what I thought this was a really good example to show was that she is a Capricorn star point. And so she's an entrepreneur. She's not only a star and a really well known and successful star, in her own right, but she owns a production company with her twin star Capricorn VSP husband, Tom. And her star point's in the seventh house in Capricorn, which is governed by Saturn, which is in Capricorn on the cusp of the seventh house. And so I thought, wow, what a perfect example of taking that star point and partnering with your actual
Yeah.
partner to run a production company,
Business.
which when you think about production and company, they're both Capricorn kind of
Yeah, yeah,
words.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you
Well, it
were
is
saying
opposite
something
of
earlier
Judah.
about her, that she's got something new coming up.
Well, there's a new movie. I think it's like it's one of the classics, done like Jane Austen or I don't know what, one of Bronte, I don't know, Emily Bright. I don't know. I can't remember the story, what book it's after, but I mean, actually it's Wuthering Heights. It's Wuthering Heights.
Oh,
There's the
okay. Wuthering
movie of
Heights.
Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
And
That's the Bronte, one of the Bronte
Bronte,
sisters.
right. And
Yeah.
so the young man, Jacob Elordi, who's an Australian actor as well, he just played Frankenstein, right? Like, very, if any you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. And actually we know him because my son used to play basketball with him anyway.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
he now, so she's in the movie with him and it's just released. I mean, I don't know, anything more about this, that story, or what's happened behind the scenes or anything, but maybe there's something more to be revealed in that. I'm not sure. I'm just,
Hmm.
but anyway, two Australians in, an English Wuthering Heights movie. Well, it's probably not English. I don't know. It's the English story, but yeah. So
Yeah.
that's coming out soon. Yeah.
That was the one with Heathcliff, right?
Yeah, I
Heathcliff.
mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Heathcliff. Yeah. So he plays
Yeah.
Heathcliff and she's obviously
Yeah.
who the other person is. So yeah, I've seen some shorts of it or photos, but it's probably coming out soon, like the holiday season. So anyway,
Okay.
that's kind of, there you go. There it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were mentioning the Mars Saturn square before. I think Mars Saturn can get a lot done. It's not always blocked. It's not always like under severe, retrograde conditions or whatever of Mars being inhibited. And her Mars is in its own sign of Aries, exactly square Saturn in its own sign of Capricorn. So I think you know it's worked out pretty well for her. She's taken that cardinal energy of 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 her chart. She is a morning star, so that would relate more to that. Um, and she's taken it and she's really done incredible things with that uh,
Yeah,
in her
yeah,
life.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the like her moon also is like one or nearly two Scorpio, but so the next star point will also be very close to, or the next
Right.
retrograde will be over her IC and moon. So, there's something coming up. There's something, maybe she gets an award that's really big, or I mean, Academy Awards coming up. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something there. This Capricorn star point is opposite of Jupiter. Maybe the movie will be, credited for something. I'm not sure. I mean, she was big in Barbie. That was under the Leo star
2023
point,
is
wasn't
when
it?
Barbie came
Yeah.
out, and it came out just as the 20-degree Leo star point
Yeah.
was happening.
Yeah.
And it's not in this, it could be in her progress chart. I haven't looked at her progress chart, but with all her cancer, it's very likely that something was hanging out around that 20-degree Leo star point, either Mercury or her
Mm-hmm.
sun. Um, you know, when she did Barbie, because that really was just blew everybody out of the water.
Yeah, yeah,
That was,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's
Wow.
another one to watch. Um, so that's what I have for today.
Oh,
These are where you
fantastic.
can find all on my YouTube channel. If you go to my website, you'll find the link. There's so many articles and free articles on the Venus Star Point. As Julia mentioned at her website too, the CIA website, there's tons of things that we've done in the past that are available to view. Also at my YouTube channel, tons of things. So, and that's the book that this is all based on. All my theories of the Venus Star Point are pretty much in this book. There's an ebook version of it too that's more abridged if you want that one. But this is the print book and it's got all the astrological charts and data in it and so forth. And then these are old classics from the 90s that I wrote in the early 2000s, the twin volume set of the Mythic Astrology.
So Mythic Astrology is out again.
Oh yeah,
Is
it's
yeah,
been out for a
great.
while, 5 or 6
Yep,
years. It was republished in this
yep,
format
yep.
by Echo Point Media about
Fantastic. Yep,
2019, I think. So this is the new volumes. This is what they look like.
yep.
But if you've got the original volumes, it's these are not different. It's the same material. It's just a different cover
Fantastic. Yep.
because it's a different publisher. But
Well,
there's a lot of good information in those too. But those books came out before my Venus Star Point
yeah.
days and research. So
It
there's
was our
nothing.
first book we had to read when I was studying. So,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely loved it. I actually remember buying it for other people that, weren't studying astrology, but I knew they'd love it. Like, this is about the planets and the signs. And if you're kind of at the beginning of your story, or even not at the beginning, it's a wonderful book. Well, all of them are. So thank you, Ariel. That's
You know
fantastic.
what? I've always thought that astrology ought to be learned through mythology, that they are such they're so embedded
They're
with
so
each other.
deep.
The
Yes,
story
it's
of the stars and the
yeah,
planets and the signs have so much to do with the myths that have been created from the stars, the story of the
yeah,
stars, and
yeah,
vice
yeah,
versa.
yeah.
So, and our interpretation of planets have come a lot from the myths, but the myths have come from what the stars are actually doing. So there's a lot
Mm,
of crossover
hmm.
between the two. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
such a rich history of it all. So, yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Ariel, for sharing all of that. And I hope all of you have enjoyed that, deep dive into the cycle of Mars and Venus, the conjunction with the Sun, and all the Venus star work. Very good material. So, with that, we'll say goodbye because it's been a while.
yeah.
Um,
Thanks for staying with us.
yeah. Well, you can always pause it, you know that. Well, some videos go for hours
I
on
know.
YouTube.
Yeah, you can take breaks whenever you need to.
You can take breaks, that's right. But we do hope to see you all again in 2000 and hang on, 2026. Keep up with what the CIA is doing. What else have I got to say? And the Mexican trip.
We
That
hope
will
to see
be
some of you in
Yeah,
Mexico. We really do.
yeah. We know we'll see some of you there. So just keep in touch. And good luck with the rest of the year and coming into 2026. All the best,
Yes.
everyone. Thank you so much, Ariel,
Blessings
for,
to
for your
all.
time and
Blessings. Yeah.
all your wonderful work. And we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.
Bye.